Wednesday, June the 1st edition of the Carolina Weather Video. And of course, June the 1st marks the official beginning of the Atlantic Basin hurricane season. I will give you a rundown of what's going on in the tropics here as we get toward the tail end of this video. There is a little disturbance out there to discuss with you. A lot of heat across the region. We had highs mid to upper 90s in many spots across the Carolinas on Tuesday. And in fact, Irwin hit 100 yesterday afternoon over in the eastern parts of North Carolina. A lot of heat, and we will have another hot day today. Also some thunderstorm chances coming into play today as well. The radar pretty quiet overall, certainly over much of the eastern half of the country this morning. We do have some thunderstorm activity scattered around parts of the northeast along a cold front that is dropping toward our area. Pretty easy to pick up that front on the temperature map this morning. Lots of very warm air this morning over the southeastern third of the country. You do get into some much more comfortable air back in the northern plains and spilling into the Great Lakes. There's the dew point temperatures this morning, and that is a lot of folks with 65 degree or higher dew points. That is the 65 degree line right there. So everybody south and east of that line with dew points of 65 degrees or warmer. That's a very moist air mass in place. All right, there's the water vapor imagery. This tells the story for us pretty well. Pretty easy to see that cold front. Behind the front, you have the cooler air. But notice the main energy, the upper level dynamics, way up here in Canada with the front. So there's not a lot to drive convection or drive thunderstorm activity. But I think the front itself probably enough to kick off a few thunderstorms this afternoon and this evening. Again, that upper level energy way to the north, a broad ridge from the southern plains into the eastern part of the country this afternoon. Here's how we look by Friday morning, though. Somewhat of a northwest flow. We might get a little break from the heat temporarily at the tail end of this work week, but the ridging will try to build back in here over the coming weekend. All right, there's the day one convective outlook. Still have a slight risk, really covering much of the Charlotte, Triad, and Triangle regions up into the northeast. This is what one of the small-scale models does, the SPC WRF model, and this is valid. Let's see, that'd be at 10 o'clock this evening. And notice it has some pretty good thunderstorm activity from parts of the Charlotte metro over toward the Triangle region and up to around approaching Elizabeth City. Let's look at the GFS model, and this is the precip until 8 p.m. on the GFS, pretty much dry, but then it does get some nice thunderstorm chances going, at least in terms of isolated or widely scattered storms as we get into this evening. A lot of the other modeling is the same. So what I'm doing with today's forecast is mentioning the chance of some late afternoon and evening scattered thunderstorms. A lot of us will probably stay dry, but the storms that do form will produce a lot of lightning, and there is the chance of some damaging winds and some hail with any of the storms that do fire late today. Now tomorrow, that boundary, that frontal boundary, kind of stalls off just to the south of North Carolina, but places in the southern Piedmont probably still close enough the next few afternoons to that front to get a few thunderstorms bubbling up in the heating of the day. There's Friday's map, much the same. Probably the I-40 corridor and points north, largely dry. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but southern parts of the state could see a few thunderstorms bubbling up. Now, let me go back to that Friday map very quickly. Notice high pressure over eastern Canada, and some of that more comfortable air trying to drive down the eastern side of the mountains. So there may be some spots even shy of 90 for highs on Friday, but then I do think over the weekend we build those temperatures back up, back into the low to mid 90s Saturday and maybe mid to some upper 90s on Sunday, and there will be another thunderstorm chance across the entire region Sunday afternoon with a little disturbance dropping in. Monday still looks relatively hot with some highs, at least in the low 90s Monday afternoon. Now, some discrepancy between the European and the GFS model as to how the midweek period next week unfolds. European model on the left here, kind of a broad ridge over much of the eastern part of the country. The GFS actually brings a pretty pronounced trough to the western Atlantic. I think the GFS is probably not the more correct model this time around. So I'm going to keep things certainly on the warm side, and we'll see how hot it stays into the middle part of next week. All right, tropical update time. We do have a disturbance there off of the Carolina coast, a few hundred miles east of Charleston, and it actually looks pretty decent on the satellite imagery this morning. Pretty nice outflow around it, some fairly condensed convection, and that's dropping off to the southwest. There's the computer model plots on this, and largely unanimous consensus here that it'll move into North Florida and then into the Gulf of Mexico. The upper level winds are not overly conducive for development here, but I can't rule it out that this tries to consolidate, but the odds are against it, and this will be moving into land here fairly soon. So there's not a lot of chance for this to develop, but kind of something interesting to watch here as we begin the Atlantic hurricane season officially today. All right, that is it for today's edition of the Carolina Weather Video. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. Stay cool, and God bless.